Oh, okay, so we got up to Amar Aleph, but I'm going to go back a couple of lines to the bottom of Daf Lamed Tesman. Days, Tani Bar Kapar, Ir Chazer ve'ir Chazer ve'ir. The lashon of the Mishnah of the Gemara here is 3 times there was Ir. The Shbam learns it was only 2 times. Although there are those that argue, Begach holds 3 times. So im machmas tiny rishon Ir. If each time he was ma'ayer, it was with the same taina of Ir, he was consistent. For instance, he said all 3 times, "You're a Goslin, you took my land illegally," or 3 times he could have said, "You're there legally as a mashkanta, but you didn't buy it." Then ein le chazaka. There is no chazaka to the machzir. Vimlab. What if he used the first Ir? He said, "You're a Goslin." The second time he said, "You mashkanta." Then yesh le chazaka, because my Ir is not an Ir. I contradicted myself, and therefore I lose my nemanus. And the Rashbam says we look at it like there was no Ir at all. And after 3 years since this machzik first got into the field, we say that he has a chazak. Amar Rava, Amar Rab Nachman. Rava said in the name of Rab Nachman, Machab b'fnei shnayim. Machab b'fnei shnayim. If you make a macha b'fnei shnayim, so 2 Edom were there when you said, "This is my karka, get off it, you're a Goslin." The ein tzarich loymar ksuvu. In order for them to write a star that I was moicha, I don't have to instruct them to write it, because writing this star is only a benefit to me. It records that I in fact made this macha. So since it's only of a benefit to me, we have a rule of zachin la'adam shaloi b'fan. Let's have a look at the Rashbam, starting from the bottom of Amud Beis. Macha b'fnei shnayim ve'ein tzarich loymar ksuvim. Ella sagt the Rashbam, koisvin loy ha'edim shtar macha l'ma'ayer. The Edim could write a star to the ma'ayer about the error that they witnessed. Lios biyadoi la'edus shemicha b'soch gimel, so that he has a proof of the edus, in fact, that he was moicha. So later on, when he wants to go to Bezdin, he will have a raya that he was moicha. Even though they were not instructed to make the star. Why can they do it? The zachin loy la'adam shloi b'fanav. You could be mezaka someone with something if it's only good for him, and therefore v'shaloi b'shusai. The mistama nichalei, because we can assume that the ma'ar would be very happy that this was being recorded, and also moida b'fnei shnayim bein tzarich lemerksu, as well as moida. What does moida mean? Zok Rashbam. What if they held a gun to someone's head and they said, "You better sell this property to me," or they held a gun to someone's head and they said, "You better sign a star that you gave it to me." And they were going to force me to write a star mechir or a star matana in front of Edom, and I know this is going to happen sometime in the future. So before I write that star of mechira or matana that I'm coerced to write, you have to go to 2 Edom and tell them, you should know, that star mechir that I'm going to be writing tomorrow, or that star matana that I'm going to be writing tomorrow, I'm not doing this optionally, not out of my free will. They're forcing me, they're forcing me to do this. And therefore, the star that I'm about to write tomorrow under duress should not be valid. And sooner or later, I'm going to be tovei them in din. Umarana l'shtara apumaychu. I'm going to destroy their star that says that I sold it or gave it to them because of your words, because of you ate them. Shemasarti ma'idol nechem. Because in front of you I declared that what I'm about to do tomorrow is against my will, under duress. Kodim shenas star. So the way this works is v'dafka kodim ksivus star. I can't do this after I write the star. If not worth anything. If that was the case, that after you write a star, you can declare that it was under duress. Any star that somebody ever writes, even if you change your mind, you have a way of passing them. Therefore, this maidah only works if it was done before the coerced act. I don't have to tell the Adam to write it. What is the general rule of all the different cases that we're going to talk about now? Where some, the Adam on their own, can write a star and some cannot? Anything that is of only benefit to the person that the star is related to. The Adam do not ask for shorts, they can write a star on their own. Why did the Gemara list off each one individually? We could have listed off in one shot. These three stars, if you appoint Adam, they don't have to be instructed to write a star. They can do it on their own. Rava was saying each of these halachas in the name of Rav Nachman, and he didn't hear them all together. Every halacha he heard separately, and therefore he delivered them separately, even though he delivered them at the same time. And then Rava combined these halachas together, and he presented them together, but exactly how he heard it from Rav Nachman, which was individually. And that's why we write stories of bittul, of haidah, for a star mechira matana, the me'ata loisoil hamoidah, because it will not work. So what they do now is when someone gives a get, he has to write, if I made a star haidah, up until this point, I'm being mevatel the star haidah. So therefore, if there is a star haidah, it'll ruin it. Because technically, I could always make a star haidah before I do any action, like a get, like a matana. You never know. It's an insurance policy. Just in case I'll want to get out of it, I'll be able to get out of it. So to counteract a potential that there's a star haidah written, we make another star right before a guy writes a get, that I'm hereby being mevatel any star haidah that I wrote. So it's like it's going to go back and forth to end of the result, but that's how we do it now. Okay, now we have a very big problem.
If there isn't if he comes and makes an afar and there isn't a star, because they ate and didn't buy it, does that do we assume then there wasn't an afar?
Well, I have to prove that I made a machor. I'd have to bring the Adam to Beslan and say, did you make a machor? They say, sure.
So lack of evidence now, because in this case the Adam should have written it on their own volition. Lack of the star indicates it didn't happen.
I don't know if the right didn't happen. I have to bring a right that it did, and I'm not able to bring that right that it did.
Have to bring that.
So another question: what exactly is this star? And that's what Tosfos speaks about and takes us through a very interesting shaila about stars and how stars work. I don't understand. Why will the star work at all? The way a star works, if I'm a loiva and I write a star that I borrowed money from you, I'm being mechayiv myself with the star. I'm writing a star that's to my detriment. That's when a star takes on a koyach of its own. I'm writing that I sold the property, so the star is to my detriment. So through a star, thank you, I'm mechayiv myself. Or I'm sorry. Or it's either midas Where am I in Tosfos? Shtar mecher midas moicher, ushtar matana midas noisei, ushtar milva midas loiva. So the problem is, what exactly is this shtar doing? We know a shtar mecher is a raya that you bought a property, but that's because the Edom aren't writing it. It's me talking. I sold you this property. The Edom testify that this is what I said, but it's me being mechayiv myself with the shtar. This shtar, I'm the ma'ara writing it, so I'm not being mechayiv myself. If anything, if the machzik wrote a shtar that he made error on me, that would make sense. That why that shtar should have value. Otherwise, they're just recording what Edom saw. What good is it recording what Edom saw? Zok Tosfos, maybe just to prove it's Edus. Ve'edus nami lechoshev. The mipm v'lim piksavam. Edus have to be delivered in person. Edus cannot be delivered. Testimony cannot be delivered through a letter because it says mipm v'lim piksavam. We don't accept a written what's the word?
Affidavit.
An affidavit. We don't accept affidavits. It has to be in person. Upirish Rashi, Upirish HaChumash. What does it mean? An affidavit is not acceptable. So exactly what is this shtar doing? I can't just bring it to Bezdin and use it to prove that I made a macha, because that's my piksava. And all the Rishonim discuss this, but this is what Tosfos says: the takanas chachamim hi sheyechoshu veidus. It's a takanas chachamim. Really, it does not have the bite, the strength of a shtar, because a shtar is written by the person who's being mechayiv himself with the shtar. This whole shtar is at the takanas chachamim kedei levatal hachazaka veidus koldahu, to allow the chazaka to be eliminated with a minimal type of testimony, even in an affidavit. Because we know that you don't need an edus alya to mevatla chazaka. Any small thing can be mevatla chazaka. Where do you see that? Even if we know for sure that the machzik never heard the macha, nevertheless, mahani levatla chazaka. It wouldn't be mevatla chazaka. So we very easily break a chazaka, and therefore v'gam b'mayda takanas chachamim hi lahatzel hanenas, to save someone who's being forced. V'kim shtaris nami. So we're going through the different types of shtaris and why it will work. So the shtar that we're writing here to the benefit of the ma'arer, we're writing it because it's takanas chachamim, because we want to make it as easy as possible to break a chazaka, and you find that it's very easy to break a chazaka, because even if the machzik didn't hear my macha, it didn't get to him, as long as I made it properly, I might have told 3 people, and chaber chislei, but if punkti didn't hear, right? It's still considered, it still destroys the chazaka. So that's where the Rabbanan would be lenient, and they would accept an edus and an affidavit, even though normally you don't. But Maidah, right? We said there's a shtar Maidah also. By a shtar Maidah, once again, I'm not being mechayiv myself anything. To the contrary, I'm saying what I'm doing tomorrow will not have validity. So that's also takanas chachamim lahatzel hanenas, to save people who were being coerced into writing either gittin or writing shtar matan or shtar mechira. And v'kiyum shtaris nami, we're going to soon see one of the cases is kiyum shtaris, meaning if I wrote a shtar and I want to be mekayim in a bezdin, so the bezdin is mekayim the shtar, and now the shtar will act as testimony. The kiyum shtaris nami mishum demaisa bezdin. Kiyum shtaris is done by a bezdin. It's not a testimony of Edom; it's a testimony of bezdin. B'chol maisa bezdin nichtav even shaloi miratzon achai. And when you have a maisa bezdin, that doesn't have the rules of shtar, that it has to be written by the person who's making himself burdened. Rather, it could even be written by the person benefiting, because Ma'aseh Bezdin works that way. So now Tosfos tells us some more information. V'oid oimeri k'shama min Rabbeinu Tam, that he heard from Rabbeinu Tam, shenahagim l'shaleach ha'edim Edusum bigeres lebesn. This that we said until now, that an edus cannot be delivered by affidavit, the Re tells us that the Rebbeinu Tam held, and nowadays we do accept edus through an affidavit. The choshev edus, and it's considered a proper edus. We just brought a raya from Ipim V'Lo Piksovam that we don't accept edus through an affidavit. There's a very big chiddush. Also, elalamute dafke ilim sh'enei bar hagad. Ipim V'Lo Piksovam means the aid has to be royu to be able to speak. But if the aid is a mute, then we won't accept his testimony by him writing it down. Avol royu lagada. But if the Edom are kosher Edom, meaning they could speak, ein hagada makeves boy, they don't have to actually deliver the testimony orally. They can deliver the testimony through a signed affidavit. The hadam reading beperek basic subis kosev adam edusa el shtar. The person can write his edus on the star umeir alel achakama yomim achakama shonim, and he can be made after many years. Who shezorchem That's only if he remembers it on his own. Whenever a police has testimony in the court, the police ask, can I use my notes? So the judge asks, why are you using your notes? So if he says, I don't remember it, I'm just reading you off my notes, that's called hearsay. They don't accept that testimony. But if the police officer says, I'm using my notes to refresh my memory, but I have independent memory of it, then they say, this is good. And then here's where I say, objection, Your Honor. He doesn't remember a thing. He's just saying that he remembers, but he's just reading it off his notes. And I'll prove it to you. And I ask him some other questions that aren't in his notes, and he has no clue. But I always get overruled. It doesn't matter. At Kudnikol, you have to make a scene in court. Because Shimon Shomon taught me that when you go to kangaroo court, like the justice of peace court, not a real judge, for parking tickets, the person who makes the judge laugh wins. So I'm very good at that. Wow. Except when I once was standing in front of a judge, and she was a lady the size of an aircraft carrier, and everyone addressed her, Your Worship, and I they call her Your Battleship. I don't
think that would win.
Everybody else laughed except for Avalein Soicher Me'atzmai. But if the A does not have independent knowledge, loy. Hainu Kishaini Mochik Savyad be a bezin, that's where he's not pulling out a Ksavyad. But a Ksavyad, an affidavit would work. Okay. Let me see if he says anything else that I wanted to highlight. Okay, that's good.
So someone who's mute and not write, not give.
We will not accept his testimony by writing.
Instead of speaking. Like,
correct.
I'm going to write it out now because I.
Correct. Correct.
What is any star with Edom on it? Is that not the?
That's the person who's been mechayiv himself, being testifying. So a lawyer writes, I owe the Malva $100. So that's my testimony. That's my testimony that I'm being mechayiv myself, and they're just starting that I said this, but it's me being mechayiv myself. Shub as well. The husband's being mechayiv himself, although he doesn't realize it. Someone once said, I don't know why the receiver lends the ksuba. The chassid lends the ksuba. He should know what he's getting into.
You want to make sure he heard it. So and a get would be the same thing. The Edom on a get.
I guess so. Well, get really is a special exercise. It's a whole different monkey. It's a whole different thing how it works. Because you might say that a get is a schos for you. It depends on your perspective. Right?
You can't have an aid. An aid has to come and say if it's I'm defining that. You can't send that in a written testimony.
No, well, the aid doesn't say b'fainach. The shliach says that.
Yeah. So you can't. Yeah.
So that's not an aid. That's a special takana. Okay, so let's see what the Gemara says. So far we had a star of Ir and we had a star of Haidah, which are all a special takana. Okay, Haidah b'fnei shnayim v'tzarech loy merkshu. What is Haidah? Zakt the Rashbam. Haidah is Adam shemoida lechaveiroi b'fnei beis. Someone who was moided to his friend in front of two people, shechayiv leimon. So Reuben told Shimon, yes, I owe you $100. And Levi and Yehuda are watching. And I don't mean Levi and Yehuda, they're brothers, because they're apostle faded. I mean Levi and Yehuda, who are strangers. For that matter, it could have been Reuben and Shimon, who saw Reuben tell Shimon, I owe you $100, right? Saying Levi and Yehuda would indicate that they're brothers, that the Edom were brothers. So that's not the case. There, I have to instruct the Edom to write it because I'm giving a schus to the Malva in the star that now he can collect for me as a milva b'shtar. The Edom cannot write up a star about what I said that I was more than $100 unless I specifically instruct him to do so. It creates a major schos because now the Malva can just pull out this document and with that document demand payment. So Levi didn't explicitly instruct the Edom to write this down to record this, they wouldn't be able to. This is something that's damaging to the detriment of the Levi. Since it's the Levi's responsibility to write it, and he didn't instruct Edom to write it, he might not want to do that. He might not want to give the Malva that strength. Shechayiv Malva b'shtar. Shechayiv Milva b'shtar. That has to have a milva al peh. Up until now, if the thing wasn't recorded in a star, it's considered a milva al peh. What's the mile? Why is it better for the Levi to have a milva al peh rather than a milva b'shtar? The avagav the hoide b'fnei edim nemon hu loimer kol shah sheyir to parait. The law is if I'm moide in front of Edom that I owe someone money, I'm allowed to. So when he comes to collect from me the next day, I can say, yes, I admitted that I owed you money, but I happen to have paid you back. And I'm nemon to say that I paid you back. The kaimalon namalva l'chaveira be'edim ain't tzorich l'par be'edim. I don't have to pay back with Edom. So therefore, I can claim I paid it back, and I don't have to have Edom that I paid it back. But the achshav k'sheyes b'yad shtar. But now that the malva is a star, that I admitted that I owed you the money. Now from this point on, ain't aloiva nemon loiva parai. I will no longer be able to say paraiti. Elam kain yavu edim shapar with them unless I bring edim that I paid. Afilu haitzi hamalva ala loiva ksaviyada shaloiva shuchayiv loy. Even if it's not to edim, merely my handwriting that I wrote, I owe you $100. Goyvam in a chasam b'nei chayred. You could only collect from b'nei chayred. It's not called a milva b'shtar legabi di koil, and therefore you can collect from sold property. But it does become a milva b'shtar to say that the einoi neman leimer parait. So kol shekei b'shtar sheyesh be'edim. If a mere handwritten note, I owe you $100, allows you to collect and will cancel out my time of paraiti, kol shekei if there's a star with edim that says that I was more that I owed $100. So again, that's to my detriment. Therefore, they wouldn't be able to write it unless I instructed them to. Okay. What about kinyan? Kinyan b'fnei shnaim. Again, a star kinyan that I sold this property to you. I don't have to take ksuv. We're going to need to know why. Because kinyan, the moich is writing that I sold it to you. That's to my detriment. If it's to my detriment, why is it that I don't have to take ksuv? I should have to take ksuv. Let's see if the Rashbam talks about this. Zok the Rashbam. Okay, we'll see it later in the next Rashbam. The kiyum star is b'shlosh. What is the definition of kiyum stars? I have a star that's signed by Edom that says that Shimon owes me $1,000. I want to be Mekayim the star, so the star itself I'll be able to collect without the Edom. So I bring the Edom that signed the star to Bezdin. Bezdin reviews it and verifies in fact that this is a legit star. And then Bezdin signs on it. 3 Dayanim sign on it. We checked out the star and we are telling you that this is a good star. And that's Bishleisha. Amar Rava. So Rava said, Ikashali, Hakashali. If I have a kasha, this is going to be my kasha. Hi Kinyan, Heichadam. So Kinyan starts with Bishleisha. We'll see the response in a minute because it's a Maisa Bezdin. It's Bezdin doing. A Maisa Bezdin, we saw, does not have to, does not need the das of the Machayev. Right? It's Bezdin declaring that this is a good star. We don't need that the loiva should be Machayev himself. A star with Tuedim require that, but not a Maisa Bezdin. So now the Gemara wants to this star Kinyan Heichadam. Ika Maisa Bezdin Dami. If a star Kinyan is like a Maisa Bezdin, and that's why it ain't Tzarech Loimer Ksuvu, you don't have to instruct them to write it, they can write it anyway. Well, the bloit lasa. Maisa Besin needs 3 Adam, not 2. It needs 3 dayanim. And he like a Maisa Besin dummy, and if it's not like a Maisa Besin, it's a regular star. So why is it that the Adam could record the sale on the star, even though I didn't instruct them to do so? After this question was asked, the Gemara had a teretz to it. A kinyan, a star kinyan, is not a Maisa Besin, and that's why it's enough to have 2 Adam. Why could 2 Adam write up a star to talk about this mecher if they weren't instructed to do so by the mecher? The default of kinyan is always made to be recorded. So the mere fact that I'm doing this mecher in front of Adam is in and of itself a consent that they should write the star. Let's see the Rashbam will elaborate on this. Zok the Heilige Rashbam kiyum star is begim. Zok the Rashbam mi sheyesh l'shtar chaveroi, somebody is the star. V'choishesh shemiyalchu Adam al b'din sayam yamusu. I'm afraid by the time I collect, I will no longer have access to my Adam, and then my star will be useless. I'm afraid that Yitin Haloiva Kiparuahu Imazuyafu. So I'm going to have to verify the star, but I will no longer be able to because the Adam won't be around. He'll have to find Adam who will recognize these signatures, and he's afraid he won't find those. So he needs somehow to sort of certify his check. Case at Yasa. He goes to Bezdin, who may be Adam Atzman. He brings the actual Adam that signed the star. And they tell Bezdin, these 2 Adam that signed, tell Bezdin, yes, we signed this document, it's legit, and this is our signature. The Haim Koishiv, now Bezdin writes, underneath the Chesimus Adam, Bezdin writes a little note as follows. We were all sitting together, all 3 of us. And this star turned up in front of us. And these 2 Adam came as Idu Achasimus Yadai. They said Edus that this is our signature. In fact, the Ishrenuhu, we were ma'asher the star, we certified the star, the Kaimnuhu Kedachazi, and we certified the star as you see it here. And then the Choisman by Gimel Hadayanim, all 3 Dayanim signed on this star. And you know what it's called? It's known as a henpek. Bu henpek. Similar to a husband who listens to everything that his wife says. It's called a henpek. So listen to your star like you listen to your husband. I think that's why it's called a henpek. Could be there are other pratim as well. The gam ashrasha the daini, other people call it an ashrasha the daini. Those are the different terms you find throughout Shas to describe this document. L'kach tzarich gimel. That's when there need to be 3 people signed. Tishnaim shadanu, if the bezin wants to be a bezin that's comprised only of 2 dayanim, the name din, it's a good sak. However, elishinekroin bezin chotzer. They're called a chutz b'dika bezin, a bezin with gall, the audacity. Sanhedrin and Masechah Sanhedrin, but here it would be worse than that. It wouldn't even be valid. Afidin diyavid nami loy. Dim kain, because if 2 dayanim could certify a star, ma yesh bein hempik l'shtar shalamayla mimen. What is the 2 Adam signed on the star saying that they were Makayim it? Why is that any better than the 2 Adam that signed the star in the first place? Hacha trei chasimi, bacha trei chasimi. V'doimin, you know what it's like? Lebeiz Adam shemeidin sheshamu mipi Adam shalamayla sheshtar kosher. That's mamish hearsay. The Adam mipi Adam possible. Avol kashen gimel, but if it's 3 dayanim that are certifying the star, the hein bezdin, this is no longer Eidos. This is already a bezdin. Bezin are testifying that the Edom on the star is a proper certified Eidos. Lefnei Bezin in front of Bezin. The Shirai Bezin is the star. The Akshav Choshman Bezin, the star is a kosher. And now Bezin is certifying the star as kosher. That works. The Daimel Psaktin, it's more like a written verdict. Amar Rabba Ikashli, but if I do have a problem, the Amali Rav Nachman in any of these halachas, it's the Kinyan, the star of Kinyan, that I don't understand why he doesn't need an appointment. Hi Kinyan, Lamai Medamale Rav Nachman. What does Rav Nachman consider a star Kinyan? Ichamai Sebesan Dami, Umishim the Doimila Din Shal Dayonim Shamitzin Mizev and Noishn Lazar. Vav Ayide Kinyan, Ayide Dusan, Shirayin the Kinyan. By seeing the Kinyan, Yosy mom and zeh b'shas kinyan miyad makli yad koina. So that's a testimony that there's a transfer of ownership of this piece of property. Umishum the damila ma'isa bezdin, since it's similar to ma'isa bezdin, come Rab Nachman says in tzorch tzuvu, in tzorch lemeksuvu. Alma, if that's the case, you see abagav the choifu lemakne lichtov star uliyafos chusha shalkaina. Even though it's damaging to the makne to write a star mecher that he's giving up the rights to this field, afilu koishu no edim below rishusai. Edim could write such a star without his rishus. Could you call masa bezdin? Why? Shekoyach bezdin yofe, and therefore v'afker and hefker lichtov kol anasa b'pneim. They have a right to record any case and verdict that they had. But if that's the case, liboy gimel kakim stars, then it should need 3. A ma'isa bezdin requires 3 dayanim. Bilav k'ma'isa bezdin dami mishum hachi kamer t'sagiv beis, and that's why it's enough to have 2 edim. Well, then amai einoi tzarech lemek suvu. Then why can they write this star to the detriment of the moicher without specific instructions to do so? So the avada sadusa b'almi. It's regular ages. And Mishumach Yizak not that's good with 2. Why can they do it without express permission? The stam kinyan l'ksiva made. Shum the ein lacher kinyan klum. After the kinyan, the whole thing is over. It's transferred ownership, and there's no more dealing. We're not going to Bezdin after this to collect. Everything is already complete and done. The kibbutz of maknalei besuder b'fnei. Since he's making a kinyan, for example, like with the kinyan suder in front of Edim, umemar laknoisim miyad. The kinyan is done now. This is not an offer. This is not a long closing. This is not locking up a property. This is an irrevocable deal. I'm not saying go to where the metaltal are and make mashicha. We're making a chalipa now, which will be active immediately. So obviously, miskaven hu l'knoise ben yofa. My intent, the intent of the moicher is to right now transfer the ownership of the property. So we can assume I want it to be written and recorded because I want the transaction to be activated right now. If he said all that, you don't have to ask him to write a star. It's automatically because you look at a star. You don't have to ask him to write a star. You don't have to ask him Shema Chazar. The stam kinyan like Siva made. When someone makes an irrevocable kinyan, the assumption is that he wants it to be recorded because it's a final deal. It's not something that I'm using to collect from later. If he didn't say the words if he didn't make a kinyan on the spot, there are those people who hold before they write up the star, they would have to consult and receive instructions from the moicher. Even if he told them affairs. Okay, so that takes us through these stars. Now we have another interesting case. Rabbi Yosef the Amrit Havayu loy chasvin maidah. You never write a maidah. So remember, maidah is what I'm going to do tomorrow. I want to tell you now is under a duress, and it's not a good transaction. So Rabbi Yosef would never write a maidah ella aman d'lotzayistina. Only if they know that the person who is doing the coercing doesn't listen to best, so they have to write it. As the Rashbam says, Ella Aman d'lotzayistina, Sarvan Bedin, he's not going to listen to Bezdin. The Tzayistina, if the person who's doing the coercing will listen to Bezdin, lay malay nisas. The Adam will say you weren't forced. The ka'anisloch, if you're being forced, amayla tav lebedina. Why are you writing up this maidah? You could just take him to Bezdin, right? If you're not, if you're concerned, then take him to Bezdin that he's forcing you. Why would you do this clandestine thing to undo it?
How are you going to prove that you're being forced?
To write a star maidah, you have to prove it too. We're soon going to see. So you have to prove it anyway.
Isn't that part of the proof? But he knew in advance that happened, so he wouldn't know.
Maybe I'm selling a property because I don't have enough money, and I'm hoping one day I'll have money. So I'm writing this as an insurance policy. That's a real legit. So the Gemara is about to say that Bezdin, before they can accept such a star maidah, they have to independently verify that this has actually happened.
Okay, but they're going to still accept it. So there's a purpose for that.
Only Aman L'Tzayistina.
Okay, but when is Somebody doesn't even listen to them. Like, in Benjamin school then?
No, it's written before. So we'll get to that. But it's written before, but they wouldn't write a star. They would not write a star unless it's someone who won't listen to Bezin. That's what the sheet of Rabbah and Rabbah the Abai was. I'm sorry, Rabbah Rabbi Yosef. But Abai and Rabbah, Amri Tavayu, I feel alive alive. No, we write it for anybody, even if we're the bad guys. And we definitely listen to Bezin. Let's see the Shmam over here. I feel alive alive. The Tzaisinon Dino, we definitely listen to Bezin. Still, roll lichtav eleni mavdod. You can write him a dot on us. The zimnin dein bezin mezumim miyad. I might not have a bezin available right now to take with the bezin. So because of that, I want to get my objection to the sale recorded with Adam. So therefore, you can always do
This is the video people make. I didn't commit suicide.
that before they take off a Democrat.
Right.
That's right. The last person that said that was the guy from Boeing, the guy who was a whistleblower at Boeing. Said, I'm not depressed. I'm not contemplating suicide. The next day, he died from suicide. Okay, Gavalti. Amunardai, call Maida, like Siv Ba. If the Maida doesn't say in it, Anan Yadinin Beibainsa, we are completely familiar with precisely what's going on over here. But onto the planya, if it doesn't say that, Lav Maidahi. It's not a Maida. So let's see your Rashba. The Leksib Bey Ananya Din and Bey into the Planya. So Oinus Gomer Yeshlei. We know that there is a real Oinus over here. Umakiranu Eza Oinus. We know exactly what's happening, and we can independently verify without his testimony that in fact this is occurring. Eloi Kosev Bahachi. If it doesn't say that in the star, Elastama, Kosvu, Ploini, Omer Lonu Shedenas, Beidim right. Yankel told us he's Nenas. But we don't know that independently. We're just recording what he said. That would not be a good star moidah. What was he writing this moidah about? Let's say it was about a get that tomorrow he knew he would be forced to write, or about a star matana that he knows tomorrow he'll be forced to write. So it's merely a gilu milsa ba'alma. What does that mean? Zok the heligar reshbam. Moidah demai. The moidah the masar agita of a matana, it shouldn't require that the Adam could identify independently what the onus is. Why? Elakivin the moida l'sahadi the high gita shani noitin l'ishti onatani boy. If I merely tell Adam that the get that I'm going to write tomorrow, I'm being coerced, and I didn't do that of my own free will. Therefore, you should know. I'm being mevatel to get today, the get that I'm writing tomorrow. The star matana that I'm going to write tomorrow, I'm under duress. The eini maknoi sabiritzoini, and therefore teimu vutelas. There, zok the Gemara, avagab the loyadi sahadi unsa delay. Even if the Adam don't know precisely what the onions is, hare get matana betelas. It should be a good star hoidah. It's very easy to find out that it's an onus. How do I know? The kivan the eno mekabel mamon b'matana uvegetashenoisen, since he's not receiving any money, if he was really interested in giving it, litnemidaitoi lama loy limter moidah. If you're actually giving if you know you're giving a gift to somebody tomorrow, if you're giving it out of your own free will, why would you write it moidah? You want to give it, so you must be right. We could trust you by default when you're claiming you're being forced to give a gift or a get. And if you're not happy, if you don't want to give it, get the matana. Why is he giving it? The only reason, the only possible explanation as to why I would be giving a get or a matana if I don't want to, I must be coerced. You don't have to determine precisely what the onus is. It's unlike a sale. The hasam tzarich lefarish. Only by a sale, if I say I'm selling it under duress, there I have to clearly state, or the Adam have to independently verify what the duress is. You know why? Nobody really wants to sell. Nobody wants to liquidate properties. Why are they doing it? Because they're under duress. They need the money, so they have to sell. The hilchach ikal meimar the masamada as an insurance policy. The kasaver hayoim ulamacher kashiyu lemais maybe today or tomorrow when I eventually get a hold of some money, I want my property back. So by writing this maidah, mafikna maidah, I'll be able to pull out my star idah, v'tavane leladina, and I'll be able to take him to Bezdin, saying that it was under duress. V'yachzer karkashali, v'ani yashal mashal will give him his money back. In other words, when he's writing a star idah on the sale, there he has a huge incentive to write the star idah. By a matana, he doesn't have an incentive. If he doesn't want to give it, he shouldn't have given it. So if he's asking for a star idah, someone's forcing him to give it. But by Mecher, it's possible that no one's forcing him to give it, but he still wants the star idah because he wants his insurance policy.
Maybe he wants his that's up his wife.
What's an option? Nice and get him matana below is lama kaisav madah bechinam. Why would he write the madah bechinam if he actually wants to give it? If he doesn't want to give it, you know what he should do? Lo yitinge, lo yitzech l'ktev madah, and then you don't need the madah.
Yosy.
Take it on its face, accept his what he's saying on his face that it is under duress.
Yosy.
Because of this, in order that people shouldn't be able to undo gittin, they made a takana to the licht of gita achi yivatel habal kol moidoi shemasa. Part of the get procedure, and we actually there was after we done gittin, there was somebody who put a whole video on the whole process of a get. They actually had it acted out. I feel bad for the guy who had to act as the guy giving the get. Israel's friend's estimate is true, right? But they actually acted out a whole get. And one of the things they do is they make him say, if I made any maidah up until this point, I'm being mavatal the maidah. The kachim of first berchen, so this is what Tosfos also quoted when we learned the Tosfos earlier.
It's negating the possibility that you're being coerced, and part of the coercion is to sell it. You know, you're being made an offer you can't refuse. Sell me this field or I'll kill you.
So the problem is we're going to soon see it's possible that that's a good mechir. To leave his oven, that gets into a whole new shaila.
Okay.
Is a forced sale chal or not? So we're going to get into that in just a minute.
But isn't that okay?
So Zok the Gemara, either
Yosy, what does somebody know?
If it is zvini, and if it's the zvini, like you're asking, the amarava loikas zvini my da zvini. Loilam, you never write. Sorry, like a zvini my da zvini, you never write a my da zvini. You know why? Because a forced sale is a good sale. Because Ravo is free of his oven. If you force someone to sell, it's going to be a good sale. Zok the Gemara loilam zvini. It is a sale. So why do you need a maidah? A forced sale is a good sale because moidi Rava heicha the honest. Rava's moida even in mechira in the case of an extreme honest. And what is that? Uchamaisa the pardesa, like the story of the orchard. The he gavro, the mashkin pardesa lachavre latlashnin. What happened was this was a typical mashkan to the surah. And the malva was a villain. I guess they didn't after the malva ate the 3 years of chazak, and I guess the loiva wasn't moiche during the 3 years like he was supposed to. Amar, the Malva said, I'll make you a deal, Mr. Loiva. I'm happy to buy your property at its normal value, and I want you to sell it to me. If you don't sell it to me willingly, you know what I'm going to do? Kavishna l'shtar mashkanta. I'm going to deny and conceal the shtar mashkanta. I'm going to steal it from you in Gansa. A regular case where I sold something, there, but here where there's a threat on him that they're going to steal his kaka completely, there everybody agrees you write a shtar maidah, and that's the shtar maidah that we're talking about over here. Amar Yehuda.
What's a regular Tliya V'Zovim?
Sealed matana, and we're going to see what that means. Loi magvinim ba. We will not validate such a shtar. Hey chedami matanta t'mirasa. Rabbi Yosef the amalus l'sahadi. You write a shtar matana, and there's two edim that are going to sign the shtar matana, but you tell the edim zilu atmuru v'kosfule. I want you to write this shtar in secrecy. I don't want anyone to know about this shtar that you're writing. So Rav Yehuda said such a shtar wouldn't be valid because the fact that I'm doing it in hiding means I don't really want to do it. There are those who say that what Rabbi Yosef said it doesn't mean that I specifically instructed them to do this in hiding, that's not a good star. It's more than that. It's not a good star unless I specifically tell them to do this in public where everybody will see it. Sit outside on the shuk in the main city square, and if you don't tell them to write it there in a place where it's very busy and very open to everybody, that's a sign that you don't really mean to write it. What's the problem with this star? So the Rashbam tells us, Loy Makvin, you know why? The Shemen Nos Nalachikfar. Maybe I had already gifted it to somebody else. And that's why I'm writing it in secrecy, because there's probably something going on over here. Or maybe because I'm going to give it to somebody else, and I want to use this to show that I had already given it to somebody else earlier. But there's something untoward about the star, and therefore we don't give it validity. So the question is it loses validity by default, unless I specifically tell them to sign it in public, or only if I tell them to conceal it? My bainayu, in what case would there be a chiluk? If I didn't say anything, right? If I didn't say anything, according to Rabbi Yosef, that wouldn't be a good star. That's called a matanta temiros. But according to the first shita, that it's only considered a matanta temiros if you specifically instruct them to do it in hiding, then it wouldn't be a matanta temiros. Amarava, v'hava maidah l'chavuta. It would be a good star maidah. So even though it's not a good star, it would work as a star maidah, meaning a star that would have been written later. We can say that star is not valid because you see I wrote a star matana earlier to somebody else. Amar Papa, Hada Rava, this halacha that we just quoted from Rava, that you can use it as a star maidah, la beferish itmar. Rava didn't say it beferish. Elamechola itmar, he passed on a different shaila, and we were going to extract from that psak that he holds by these stars that it will work as a star maidah. What was the case? That who gathered the ozol lektusha itza. Somebody wanted to marry this woman. Amalei, she told him, I'm happy to marry you on one condition. Because of li kulu nuchsayich, if you write a matana to me and you give me over all of your possessions, I'm not going to wait till I divorce you to clean you out of house and home. I'm not marrying you until you give me all your assets. Then I'll be happy to marry you. If you're not going to give me all your assets, I don't want to marry you. This guy obviously wanted her very badly. Ozal, he went. He wrote a star to her about all his nechasim. Also, Berekeshisha, and his older son came over to his father and said, Tati, what are you doing? You just cut us out of the will. You gave her everything. Amarlei, Vahu Gabra, my Taviolei. What are you going to do with your kids? Your kids aren't going to get anything. So Omar Lahu L'Sahadi. So the father had to fix this. Now, he had not yet given this to the woman. So he went to the Edom and he told him, Zilu Atmu Be'eva Yamina, go in secrecy, the Kosvulei, and write all of my nechasim to my son. So maybe he wrote a star that he's going to give it to her after his death. He's going to leave it for her. But whatever the case is, he had them write a star that would have been valid before her star, so that now he's merely fooling her that she's going to get everything, while in essence, he's given everything to his son. And now they came to Rava, what do we do? Also look at the Rava. Amalahu, you know what Rava said? Loi markana, the son doesn't get any nechasim, loi markana, and the woman doesn't get any nechasim. So what would be the reason for Rava's psak? Man dechaza, someone who saw this, Savar thought, Mishum dehavya moidol lechaverta. The reason why this son doesn't get it is because we know a matana written in clandestinely is not a good star.
You get it by default.
Only if she didn't get it. Only if her star, she would have a star that would have given it to her first.
You need to prove that. Doesn't she have to prove that first?
He'll give her a star, but he's going to give her a star that will be dated after. He gave her, what happened was he gave his son a star that was written clandestinely, that was dated September 1st, and then he gave her a star that said September 15th. It was all given to her. And she married him, she was happy. And then he died, and now all hell broke out. So the sun pulls out a star September 1st, and she has a star September 15th. So Rabbi said nobody gets it. Oh, so you tell me if no one gets it, then the sun should get it from Yerusha.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure how that works. It's an interesting point. So Zaktimar, and so we thought it's the star is not good because the star is not good to give the sun the matana, but maybe there were other sons. Maybe there were other sons, and the woman doesn't get it because it still at least acts as a maidah. It still is like saying that I'm being coerced. I don't want to give the other gift. But Veloy, that's absolutely not the reasoning of Rome. Hasam muchacha milsa the machmasun suhu. You know when it will act as a star maidah? It acts as a star maidah if from the circumstances it's obvious that his arm is being twisted to give her this matana. So there we do accept it as a star. The cause of law. But he felt he had to. Aval hacha mar nichalei delikni umar loy nichalei delikni. But in a regular case of two stars, it wouldn't be considered a star idah, and therefore the second star would be valid. What we're trying to discuss is his marriage good? Because she made a t'nai. So did he fulfill the t'nai or not? Right. So she could say, I'm out of here, right? So I'm not sure.
Then she doesn't get her stuff either.
Right. Yeah, but at least she's not married. After you lived with me for 3 months and I'm carrying your child, now I find out their marriage is nothing. So I'm not sure how that works. Okay, so we finished up, but I can't. I have this phobia of staying on this stuff. And anyway, the Mishnah is a line away, so we'll learn a little bit more. Yiboilu, stomamai. So halacha l'mai. So we had a machlokes. What makes a star called a star? What was the lashon of the star? Star Tmirasa. What was the lashon of the star? Star Tmirasa. What makes a star Tmirasa? Is it every star that you don't specifically say that it should be written in public, or only if you would dafka announce? And the Gemara said nafbina stama. So what should we do by a stama? My Ravina Merloy Cheshina. Ravina holds that the Einet Tmirasa L'Kshera, we consider it a good star. In other words, we pass on like the lotion that says, unless I specifically instruct you to write it clandestinely, it will be a good star. If Ashir Mecheshinan, then it's not a good star. And therefore we do not give the star validity. However, the Rashbam speaks out, you don't give the star validity, but if we already turned over the asset to the person in the star, we also won't take it away. Okay, we'll stop here, but Hashem will be mamshich tomorrow. I don't know, I hate falling behind. I feel like I'm missing a mortgage payment. When I go ahead,